part of the session, and then we will hand over the stage to you, and it's all yours.
Sure.
So how do you...
Shreyas Dambal has joined in. You can welcome him.
Welcome, Shreyas. I think that's Mr. Dumble, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Dr. Priya, welcome. Shaya, welcome. Shreyas Dumble, is that Mr. Dumble or somebody else? Our club mentor Rajesh Kundar is here.
Good evening, President sir. Sridhar here, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Priya here. Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening, Murli here, sir.
Good evening. Okay, so it's 7:30. Let's start off. I request Usha to call me. Meeting call to order. I request a minute silence for world peace. Thank you. A warm welcome to all of you to this evening's program and meeting. This is the first meeting for the month of September. We have with us Mr. Narayanan, fondly called as Nari by his friends, founder of Vishwak Sena Consulting LLP. Thank you very much for joining us today, sir. We also have our dear friends from Green Park. I welcome all of you from the Rotary Club of Green Park, a fairly new club. May I request the Secretary of Shivdeep of Green Park Green Park to say a few words about Green Park before we start off. Shivdeep, would you just like to introduce your club to our members?
Sure, sir. Rotary Bangalore Green Park Club was started last year during the pandemic, and we pretty much an online club till date with few offline meetings. We have quite a few talented members from various fields in our club. One, Dr. Ilan Kupuswamy, who's joined the meeting. He's currently, I think, working for the South Korea and US relief program, which he worked on. I'm not sure if you got it right. So very distinguished members in the club which we have, and many members are from the solar industry who work with the solar installation and other things. So fairly new club, just 1 year, taking a baby steps, and I'm thankful, Shankar, for inviting us for this joint meet. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to have you with us, Shivdeep. So thank you very much. We have a very large number of people. We also have the Rotract club of Rajmal Vilas, members of other Rotract clubs also part of the meeting today. Welcome to you. And we also have our guests from friends of Rotary who have joined us today. I welcome all of you. We have also friends of Sabri and Nari who also joined us today. Welcome to all of you. I request Sabrisan to make his announcements before we move on. Sabri, over to you.
Yeah. Today we celebrate the birthday of Satish Kumar, Rotarian Satish Kumar. And the coming week, the coming Sunday is the anniversary of Rotarian Satish Kumar. Those are the announcements for now in terms of birthdays and anniversaries. Over to you, Shankar. Back to you now.
Right. I have some announcement myself. Tomorrow morning, we are having a business network meeting, zone business networking meeting tomorrow. So we have around 12 to 14 members from our club who are participating in the business development meet. It's a great way to connect and build your business network. If some of you are still interested and keen to participate in the business development meet, please do send your profiles in the format which I've sent across to you. I'll try to squeeze in. Actually, the time is up, but if somebody is very keen, I can still squeeze in some of that into the. I'll make a special request to include you. So that's what is happening tomorrow, and then we are having inauguration of our teacher program. This is a special educators training program with Amara Saundarya Foundation. And we are sponsoring 5 deserving women who would not only be getting a livelihood out of this training, but there's a great shortage of the special, educational teachers. So this will be a great service for them. So this is a very meaningful and interesting project that Rotary Rajmal Vilas is collaborating with Amara Saundarya Foundation. We'll be sending the link to all of you. I request all of you to please join us tomorrow. I also have a very interesting information to share. It's about our mobile vaccination unit project. We have a request from the BBMP to give them 2 electric scooters. And we have done a survey and we have identified the scooter by Greaves Ampere, and this doesn't require any license. And there'll be 2 vehicles. One vehicle will carry the vaccine and one staff from the PHC, and the other vehicle will carry 2 staff. And this vehicle can travel around 50 kilometers with one charge. So that's the area that they are going to cover. So these vehicles will go into places where the cars and other things don't go. So as we realized last week when we distributed the ration kits to the physically challenged people who are living in the slums and in very, very dilapidated places, we realized that many of these people will not be even able to come to the vaccination center. So this is the last mile approach, and this is going to be a very meaningful project. And if we, show a proof of case, almost all the PHCs are going to be looking at this, and other Rotary clubs will also be wanting to collaborate on this project. But we will be the first ones to actually get there. And we have an interesting proposal. We have one sponsor who's come and said, I'm going to sponsor one vehicle of 60,000 rupees if your club members are able to match that. So now the challenge is on us to match that 60,000. So I request our club members to contribute generously for this particular project. I request you to contact our club secretary, Sabareesan, and you can also mention your commitment here and then at this point of time if you want to be a part of this wonderful project. And we are going to get this inaugurated by the DG as well as the BBMP commissioner, and everybody is going to be part of the inauguration. It's going to be a grand event. So you're going to be on the stage. So if you want to be part of it, please make sure that your generosity is going to help the people to ensure that they don't fall sick and they are saved, their lives are saved. So I request each one of your club members to take part and be generous and make sure this project is done. We are looking at a very short timeline. We're looking at the next week to get this project going. So thank you very much. Thank you, Rashmi. I request our secretary, Sabareesan, to introduce our speaker for the day, Mr. Narayanan. Sabareesan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Shankar. Narayanan, Nari as I call him, or all of us call him, is the founder of Vishwaksena Consulting LLP, a firm which specializes and advises investment funds on governance, compliance, risk and tax matters. And they also do strategic advisory around the funds. It also advises startups on investment opportunities, including M&A, assists in finance matters, focused towards improving finance processes and also helping them gear up for the next round of funding. Prior to his current role, Nari worked as financial controller with Sequoia India for about 9 years. Sequoia is one of the most successful PE funds in India. Prior to Sequoia, he worked with Infosys in the corporate finance function, handling 4 different stints at international tax, finance controller of Infosys China, Shanghai, Tokyo, and also in internal audit. Nari is a chartered accountant, cost accountant, and holds a bachelor degree in commerce from the Bangalore University. We were together at MES as well. Nari is happily married. He's got 2 daughters, Vanshika, who's 10 years old, and Urmika, who's 5 years old. He is a sports enthusiast. He cycles around the city a lot. I've seen him myself. He is a marathon runner. He's a multiple Ironman finisher and has run more than 75 full marathons. Other than South Indian languages of Kannada, Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, and English, he is also conversant in Japanese and Mandarin. Okay. So over to you, Nari, and thanks for accepting our invite and being with us today.
Okay, just before Nari takes over, I'm going to intervene just a minute. So we have some interesting news update, breaking news. Usha has contributed 5,000 rupees already. So by the time we finish Nari's presentation, we should be having the other scooter ready. So I'm looking for the other members to also quickly pitch in. So we need another 55,000 going. So let's open up our purses and make sure that this project is happening. And also we have the Sunday bird watching program with the new Interact Club of Rajmal Vilas. And Deepa Padmanabhan is heading that bird watching at Hebal Lake at 6:15. And all of you, any of you are interested in bird watching, you can also join our young friends in Hebal Lake on Sunday at 6:15 at Hebal Lake. Nari, over to you. Sorry for taking away your time. Over to you.
No, not at all. Is it inappropriate for me to also confirm some amount for this? As in, I'm not a Rotarian, but
this is open to everybody. Nari, so anybody can contribute.
So as in at the, I'm happy to contribute the same. As in maybe I can transfer it to Sabrisan or whatever this one.
Sure.
Okay. So anyway, that's the positive note at which on which we thought we'll get started. So anyway, very quickly, Sabri, thanks Sabri for the introduction. That does pretty much sum up what I've done over the last 45 years. So it's a good summary. And yes, I know Sabrisan from MES. We were together at MES, although I didn't know him there, but I know him from my days at A. Ferguson, where I was an article when Sabrisan joined there as a qualified. So he's obviously much more experienced and much senior to me generally in life. So very quickly, what I thought we'll cover here, and me and Sabri kind of dabbled over what topics may interest, and it looked like what interested Sabri was possibly for me to touch upon the whole investment ecosystem or the ecosystem of startups that I've been privy to over the last 13-14 years. And of course it's such a vast world, right? So what, like with most things, the best way I thought we could go ahead is to possibly first leave out areas or make it very clear what we are not going to cover, so that there is I can talk about all of those, whether it's whether it's coming from a person who's handled it, or it's just out of my experiences or my learnings from other people's experiences can be something that I can always say. But we'll possibly try and keep out stuff that we will not cover in this, or at least we'll not make an attempt to cover it, at least from my end. But if there are any questions on those, we will. I'll be more than happy to give my perspective on some of these. Just double clicking on what I have done so that people are able to get a better context of where I'm coming from. Whatever Sabri said is kind of a polished, or what should I say, a version of marketing version of what I do. Most of my time is spent just fixing the back end of funds and the companies, right? Like essentially what a finance function would do. But in my case, I would like to think that I wear the compliance hat a bit more seriously as compared to other areas of finance. Like business finance, I don't have much exposure. I don't have much exposure in managing working capital finances of FMCG companies, things like those. But compliance side of things is stuff that I've kind of, whether by design or by choice, spent a lot more time. So that's why the whole GCRT level of what should I say, specialization that I've kind of chosen for myself: governance, compliance, risk, and tax. And these pretty much go hand in hand when you're talking about any of the organizations, especially a lot more important, a lot more critical for funds, because in just to give some perspective, the fund industry is pretty simple that way. It's, then people should not assume it's easy. It's simple because there are not too many variables for you to look at. A fund industry is basically paid, or it makes a lot of money for it to buy low and sell high. That's what any kind of fund industry you take, right? Whether it's a VCPE, whether it's mutual funds, whether it's hedge funds, it doesn't matter. It just, these categories are just dependent on what categories of assets they in turn invest in. But otherwise, all of them make the astronomical amounts of money. And because of that, because they deal with other people's money, they are subject to a very high amount of regulation. But fundamentally, the whole industry is trying to do only one thing, which is buy low and sell high. So it's a very simple industry. But yes, because of the various conflicts of interest, various complications that may come because of the amount of money involved, there's obviously a lot more regulation and the like. And just coming back to this one, I am primarily trying to see if I can handhold the people who run these funds on their matters of governance, their matters of compliance, risk, and tax, so that they are able to concentrate on the piece of investing and divesting with unilateral focus, because these things, can be guzzlers of time, may not be guzzlers of this one, but it can be, if something goes wrong, there can be guzzlers of mental energy. And what we try and do is to ensure that we don't make too many mistakes when things are being set up, so that there's lesser and lesser number of things to be corrected as we go along. So that's the thing. Very quickly, in terms of what we will not cover, and I will try and set those very clearly, so that we are all, we're looking at a slightly more focused approach on 2 or 3 areas only, rather than the whole wide area of startups. So what we'll not cover is, we will not try to go into what should be a business model of startups, what is this, how does a business model work, and things like those. We will keep that aside, and obviously we can take up any of those if we'll have any questions. We'll also not talk about something that is possibly very dear and can go on forever and ever, which is hacks to increase valuations. The valuation game is in my mind at least a vanity game. But more importantly, I don't think I know enough. I can give you my perspective as an individual, as a person who's been in this industry for 13 years, but none of it will work all the time. Again, not best placed to advise on what will please investors the most. Again, we'll try to cover the area of startups with an angle of how investors look at it, because that's the vision or view I've had for a majority of the last 13 years. I'll also try and give you a perspective of how founders think about things, but I will not be possibly best placed to advise on how to please investors. I can give you instances on what has pleased investors, but whether it will work in all the places, all the instances is a better, everybody's guess is as good as mine. Again, so these are possibly some of the stuff that I could immediately think of as to what we will not cover. And then we'll try and see how this goes. See, the macro view for me from in the world of investing is, and why we feel that we can, we've seen that some primarily comes with the length of time I've spent in this industry. It's been close to 13 years. We've seen cycles, and any, in my own mind, if you have to talk about an industry, you would need anywhere between 7 to 8 years of time to be spent in that industry for you to have gone through the entire cycle in that industry once. And in the world of investing, unfortunately, a cycle is a good 10 to 12 years, because most of the investment funds are a 10 plus 2 year fund. So a good 12 years is when the fund has started hitting the road to raise a fund, raised the fund, done the investments, made the exits, distributed the money to its underlying investors, and then taken its carry, as we call it, or the preferred return home. So that cycle, for it to go through for one legal fund, one entity of a fund, is a good 10 plus 2, 12 years. So that's the thing. And in the last 13 years, possibly you take any 13-year period, it will be the same. But we've seen it's been very eventful, right? 2008 onwards, we had the financial crisis. India did not suffer as much as the rest of the world or the Western world did, but it did affect us nevertheless. We then had the highs of 2011, 2012. Again, for a brief while in 2014, there was a blip. It was not a globally induced blip, but it was only India. Then we again had, thanks to the elections and the results of BJP, there was a lot of positivity around 2014, 2015. And that never abated till 2018, when there was another big dip. Thanks to various reasons, and again followed by the pandemic. Which pandemic, surprisingly, we thought there'll be a big correction, but it's never happened. And we are currently in India at a phase when we are, despite the $1 trillion valuations of the big tech companies in the world, fundamentally India is still a more expensive country when it comes to stock market as compared to even the US, or something which is seen as very frothy. India is currently, the fundamentals wise, we are trading at a good 25 plus on a fundamental basis, while the rest of the world is possibly not that expensive. But anyway, that is the so the underlying basic thing I'm saying is that the amount of time we spent, we've seen enough cycles for us to see how the whole industry kind of pans out. And in this, just to double click a bit more on private investing, which is what I've been very privy to, we've seen it's been very interesting. We've seen cycles where a lot of money has chased very few companies. A typical case of inflation, which means that the valuations were whatever the company wanted the valuations to be. You could get whatever number for whatever percentage of stake you wanted for your company, if it was a company that was worth, that the investors thought was worth buying. And then in the peaks of that was the peaks, and then in the lows, there was very little company chasing too many companies. Even the good companies found it difficult to raise money, which meant it was the investors' market. In 2008, we've seen that in 2014, we've seen that in 2018. So you'll typically find that any of the investments that were made in those periods, the 2008, 2009 period investments, 2013, 14 investments, 2017, 18 investments, would be doing fantastically now, unless those companies have kind of gone out of business. which is possible. And it's highly likely those companies would have gone out of business very quickly after that funding, because if they sustained through those challenging periods, there's a very, very good chance those companies are doing extremely well right now. And there are umpteen number of examples, right? As in the big examples all of us know, but there are also the smaller ones. Like, for example, there's this company called Stowcraft, which is created by this gentleman Rajendra Gandhi, who used to be a Prestige, he used to be making an outsourced manufacturer for Prestige. And one fine day, he decided he wanted to be bigger than Prestige. Stowcraft recently filed for its IPO, and also had a successful IPO literally, I think, a few months ago. So there are enough instances, and we can go into those as well as we go along. So the short story is that there has been, even in the private market side, there has been all of these cycles where there has been too much money chasing too few goods and vice versa. And we are currently at a stage where it is kind of stabilized at a fair level. Although right now there are indications that possibly there's some very expensive deals happening right now, but there are surely no good companies that are struggling to raise money. That is for sure. Like with most other things, there are always darling sectors of the darling. What should I say? The trending industries or the trending concepts, if you will. For example, over the last 24, 36 months, anything that's got a tech to it, or possibly over the last 7-8 years, anything that's got a tech to it is always valued better. You call it fintech, you call it edutech, you call it consumer tech, any of those, right? But now what we are also seeing is, we are seeing these becoming more and more into specialized silos. Like, it's no longer just a fintech. Even in fintech, are you doing consumer lending tech? Are you doing SME lending tech? Or is it a banking kind of tech? Is it an NBFC and the tech related tech enabled NBFC? So all of those are becoming more and more. And even in proper tech, we are having, whether it's AI ML, which is now the buzzing this one, or is it just something like tech enabled businesses, like Ola cabs. Would people call it a tech? They want to call it a tech business because of the valuation premium, but it's primarily a transport business, right? It's just tech enabled transport. But if you call it a transport business, it won't get the valuations that a tech company would get. And that's why the founder of Ola Bhavish would like to call it as a tech business. But then that's the perception side of things anyway, which we will not go into. So that is the thing on the whole cycles. And just from a macro perspective, the other thing that I want to leave you with is, we are a good 3 to 4 decades behind US and China from a approach, from a maturity, even from a regulation perspective. Some of our regulations are still byproduct of how they would regulate something like a mutual fund, or at best a hedge fund. Hedge fund is funds that invest only in listed companies, while private VC, venture capital and private equity invest in private companies. The hedge funds invest only in listed equities, which means the primary difference is, while VCPE will invest in the companies directly and help in the growth of the business of the company, not just the money, but also some strategic inputs. Hedge funds are just taking a bet on whether the price of that stock will go up or come down. Very rarely do hedge funds put the money in private placements that the listed companies make, or even the listed companies don't make that many private placements. Most of the hedge fund money is going into buying from the open market and selling there, which means while the underlying companies may gain from the perception value that a big hedge fund has found it to be worth enough to be bought right now rather than selling, it is the money itself is possibly not helping the underlying listed company grow. But what I'm trying to say is that the underlying, even the regulations today are, they make it for the mutual funds, they make it for the hedge funds, because that's where the retail investors need protection, as because SEBI is the regulator. And then as an afterthought, the VCPE industry comes in, which makes it, suboptimal, right? Because if it's primarily designed for someone else, and then they are trying to include you into the process. So for all of these reasons, we are possibly a good 3 to 4 decades behind US and China. China, like with most things, was in the same league as India 2 decades ago, but obviously it is leapfrogged into a different level, and is possibly not just caught up, but also maybe you could argue that they've overtaken US. If the amount of money being invested in private companies, if the multiples that the investors have got, and the amount of money that's been made from venture capital PE funds is a criteria, China has surely done better. Even on innovation side, right? Like there is no one single, for example, just taking fintech, there is no single product like Tencent that's there in the US. If for example, if you had to go to do different things, you'll have to use different apps. Facebook for social networking, LinkedIn for professional networking, and then something else for payments, PayPal or this one. But in China, everything happens through that one single super app, Tencent. So things like those, there is possibly a lot of justification for China to claim that they have, if anything, been more innovative than the US. But yes, the overarching arm of the country's government is possibly going to hold back China from at least being accepted as a world leader in all of in innovation till the time there is that overarching influence of the government on the private sector. But having said that, China has possibly done everything right and everything that they can, considering the constraints that they are in. So okay, now so that's the macro. We'll briefly touch upon the startup so that people get an idea. We'll quickly go through a journey of a startup. There's an idea stage in which basically the startup has just thought of what it will do, and then there is, depending on what it is into, we call an alpha version. Like they have done some product. If they're doing a tech product, they've generated an alpha version. If it's a website, they've just generated something, they've left it out to people. If it's an app, they've developed an app alpha version, and they've sent a link to people to play around with it and figure out how it works. Then there is the pre-revenue stage, which is the same possibly as alpha stage or this one, but pre-revenue is from a commercial model perspective. Then they get to a stage where they are able to monetize some bit of it. You have a handful of revenue paying customers. Then the big stage, which is where most companies, the men are separated from the boys, is when they're able to stabilize unit economics. If they're able to stabilize the unit economics, and for every dollar of revenue they earn, they're able to retain most of it rather than spend to earn that revenue, then they are in business over a medium to long term. The amount of fixed costs that is gone to getting those unit economics are stuff that is a matter of scale. Even if you have to spend $1 billion, if you're able to generate trillion transactions, then the $1 billion doesn't seem like much. So as long as the unit economics are good, you can think of being in business, because that is where eventually your money is going to come from. Then there is the increasing the foothold. If it's a previous old generation business, if it's a newer generation business, you just increase revenue paying customers, and then and then you take it from there. Then the next big thing, which is constant, that in my experience we've seen most companies do, is the multiple times that they need to repivot, whether in a big way or even in small ways, repivot, scale up, learn some new lessons, repivot again, scale up. And this is a cycle, right? It never stops unless you want to stop and you say, hey, I don't like to repivot anymore. This is what it is. And if this means my growth will stop, I will stagnate, so be it, but I won't repivot. But the number of businesses that we have seen repivot, do well, repivot again is not. Just for example, I'll take a company that's very close to my heart here, Hector Beverages, which is the paper boat, the company that owns the paper boat brand. It's only a 7-year-old company. 2011 is when they set it up, so 10 years now. 2011 they set it up as a energy drink company. So Hector Beverages it developed this brand called Singa. Singa in 2011-2012 was supposed to be India's Red Bull. After 2-3 years, they realized that Singa is not going anywhere. They had raised some money. They had convinced investors like even Sequoia Capital to invest in them, but they realized Singa is not going anywhere. They came back to the drawing table. They introduced the Paperboat brand. Paperboat was what is, the major things about Paperboat is nostalgic, ethnic, and premium. When they started out, they said it will be premium. It was a thirst quencher, but a thirst quencher would cost you between 30 to 50 rupees. And it did extremely well. It got more investor interest. It raised 1 or 2 more rounds of funding. And as they were doing it, they realized that this is a marketing game. So for a company of their size, while they spent a lot of money on marketing, they spent around 200 crores over between 2015 and 2018 on their brand building, because then they were hardly a 30-40 crore brand. So the amount of money they spent on the brand was very high. But in hindsight, that's possibly a great decision they did, because for 200 crores, I don't think any other company has built a brand that is as valuable as that of Paperboat. So the return on money spent per rupee on marketing is possibly the highest in the case of Paperboat. So this happened. They built their brand, and by 2016, 17, 2018, they started realizing that the growth in the premium segment is kind of stagnating. So they had very quickly, they did an analysis and they realized that the 30 to 50 rupee market in the country is around 800 to 1,000 crores. And they were in roughly only the big cities. They were in roughly 1 out of every 4 shops in the country from that were selling these premium brands, and their competitors were Real and Fruity and all of those, right? Real Juice, Fruity, and all of that. So their competition was that, and so literally their maximum market size was 250 crores, and in those 250 crores they were already doing kind of 100 crores. Like they had a 40% market share in the places they were in, which means they quickly realized that they can't increase market share. It has to be a distribution game. So in 2018, 2019, they put their energy in upscaling their distribution game from, I remember I've been seeing them closely. They were from 600, 700 outlets to literally close to 25,000 plus outlets right now as we speak. So they had figured out that it's a distribution game. And then the next pre-pivot came when they said, this 800,000 crores of market is fine, but where is the other market? Because the beverage market in the country can't be so small. And they realized that while at 20 to 30 rupees, the market size is 1,000 crores. For the 10 rupee beverage, the market is 15,000 crores. And then it's difficult to explain, but it is what it is. The Indian consumer will pay for the 10 rupee thirst quencher, but we will not pay for a 30 to 50 rupee thirst quencher. As in, people possibly in this forum, each of us will pay for a 30 to 50 rupee thirst quencher, but the average Indian doesn't pay. So they launched in 2020, they launched this brand called, a sub-brand under Paperboat called Paperboat Swing. They launched it in 2019, So, and that was a 10 rupee thirst quencher, which they said they will sell it in all those outlets which is not selling paperboard premium. There will be some bit of cannibalization, but they tried and did a good job of it. And within 6-7 quarters of them establishing Swing is today giving 2/3 of the company's revenues. So you can understand the shift. And for a company which is now at close to 350 crores of revenue, for it to be, and its premium business is still growing at a good 15-20%, but its Swing is now 2/3 of the business, which again means it is seeing the company's revenue grow at close to 40-50%, but most of that growth is coming from the latest 10 rupee product as compared to this one. So all I'm trying to say is, going back where we started this example, is how companies just have to keep repivoting. And if you're a startup, you will more often than not have to keep repivoting, because otherwise it's not going to be scalable for you, because the environment, the landscape in which these startups are functioning is very dynamic. And only after you realize that where are the customers willing to pay, you start getting this one's right. So that is this one. Pretty much the last bit I wanted to cover before I leave it open to the forum for questions is, what are the components? What makes a good, or what should I say, a startup that gets attention, let's say, that gets love, right? That's what you're looking for, because there's nothing right or wrong. There's nothing successful or unsuccessful. What is successful for me is possibly unsuccessful for someone else. But what gets love, what gets popular is the components. Is one is there's a business model, which we said we will not cover too much into. But the one primary thing I wanted to just leave the forum with is this concept called TAM, as we call it, total addressable market. If you develop something that's got a big addressable market, it doesn't matter what, even if you're solving a smaller piece of that puzzle, you'll get love. But sometimes it may look like a big thing, but if the addressable market is very small, it'll never get love. For example, and as Sabri mentioned, I'm a fitness enthusiast, but they're not, for example, I've been running for 15 years now. And there have been lots of companies, lots of people who are runners who said, hey, they're no good, the startups in this running space. I'm going to start up something on running. I'll do something on, say, for example, getting corporate people to run. We will get something. And unfortunately, well, there have been good success stories outside India. Say, for example, there's something called Zwift when it comes to cycling. There's something, there are a few swim apps as well that are famous outside India. In India, there have not been that many success stories, and I think that's simply a time issue. There's no addressable market right now. The corporates are also only gradually catching up, but it is not yet there. Even if the corporates catch up, what will happen is it will become a B2B business, business to business. In which case, the corporates have, even if there's some agency that comes and tells you we will give you programs for your employees, the corporate is able to negotiate better rates, in which case the underlying startup is not able to demand pricing. There's a big difference between B2B and B2C. B2B is possibly easy to start off and easy to scale up, because you understand you need to only understand a few customers and give them what they want. But those customers are businesses in turn, and they know your unit economics very well. They will squeeze the hell out of you. So which means you will not be able to make too much money unless you have pricing power, and you get pricing power only when you are a B2C. So what people are increasingly beginning to realize is a B2B2C is generally a good model to start off with. And then gradually you can remove the in-between business out of the equation. So for example, you set up an app today, you say it's a fitness app, you go to the corporates and convince them that they should convince their employees to take it. And maybe you possibly are there in all the, over a next 2-3 year period, you try and get to all the big companies in the country, and you feel that you become big enough that you can launch your own B2C app, which means any person on the road can download your app and start using. you generate pricing power, and then you kind of cut out the B2B2C portion, because that is possibly then hurting your pricing power on the B2C side. So that's something that that from a business model perspective is. So I just wanted to leave the forum with. Then there is this commercial model. The second bit of that puzzle is this commercial model, which is how you intend to monetize. Again, you can possibly have a big addressable market, but if you are not able to monetize it, how will it work? That's the problem. For example, till recently, or till around 3-4 years ago, even e-commerce companies were struggling with it, because the Indian online shopper was not paying for convenience. He was paying for the discounts, but he was not, or the average Indian shopper was not yet paying for the convenience. Maybe there is some in some forums they think that's changing, but I recently read a report published by this Ken, which is a very, very good magazine, which indicated that even today, the number of paying customers on the Indian online market is only 10 million. We can be a population of 1.3 billion, but that doesn't matter. Only 1 out of every 130 people in the country is paying for convenience. While this number is possibly 150 to 200 million in the US, and that is possibly the reason why online companies are valued that much higher, and their ARPU, average revenue per unit of sale, is a lot higher than the ARPU of an Indian e-commerce this one. So that is the thing. So monetizing it is indeed a bit of a challenge, especially in the Indian market. But maybe it will change, right? Possibly needs a generation to change, but it will change. And again, in our limited experience, the companies we've seen that is able to make some kind of a headway on this is when you have someone else to pay for it. For example, which is a B2C brand that's successful in India that immediately comes to mind? Byju's, right? Byju's, it's again a subscription based model, but Byju's is successful because you have chosen an industry which people in the country don't want to take a chance with, which is your kids' education. Maybe something like this in health may also do well, because the 2-3 things that research time and time again has proven that people don't think about when it comes to spending is children's education and health. These are 2 things that people just don't want to take a chance, right? Like, for example, I still remember when I went for my kids vaccination, the doctor said, there are these 2 vaccines, both of them do the same job, but I would recommend this second one. And we said, okay, what's the difference, doctor? The first one costs you $200. The second one costs you $3,000. I'm like, it's not even I don't know what to do with the data, because the doctor says I recommend something, and that's it, right? It's a kid's vaccination. You say, boss, I don't care, I'll pay 3,000, even though you are telling me it's doing the same job, but for the simple reason that you say you recommend something over the other, I don't mind paying 15 times over, because it's my child's health. So, and that is the way the human mind works. And if someone else is paying for it, for example, I had the privilege of working with Anil Kumble for a good year or so on his new Spectacom app, which is that card they put behind the bat to measure this one. Again, there we found that if we made the parents or the coaches insist that each of the bat that the kids use should be a smart bat, then the students don't have a choice. Because the students, if you told them that you will get all the data from your batting, put this, each of these devices will cost you $20, $30, and it will cost you maybe $5 every month because it's a subscription based model, they may not take it up. But if the batting coach or your cricket coach tells that I need those data every month, or every practice sessions data I need to monitor how you are playing and to give you my feedback, then it becomes a no brainer for us. And we, with Anil Kumble's reach, we had an access to enough number of coaches in the country for them to insist that something like this had to happen. And then how it eventually panned out, we don't know. I wasn't there that long in that system to figure out, but at least that's a thing we found out, that if we had to have someone else pay for the actual fees, if the decision maker was someone else, the long story short, it possibly was easier, is what we felt. And the challenge is the that's another thing, this one. Then the other very important thing that we found in my experience, this is something that's never gone wrong for me, or is that the founder credentials, right? It doesn't matter what the founder wants to do. The commercial model, the business model, all of those goes out of the window. All logic goes out of the window if the founder is someone who has done some good things in his past life. For example, Cred. I think all of you have seen ads of Cred, and I have also been relatively closely involved with Cred for some time. But none of us, even the investors in Cred, possibly don't know what is their revenue model. What is it that they will do over a period of time? How will they monetize what they're thinking? But Cred is $1 billion. It's a unicorn. It's valued at $1 billion+. And all of this is because the founder is Kunal Shah. And Kunal Shah's claim to fame before Cred is the founder of Freecharge, which was sold at a $500 million valuation to Snapdeal in 2016 or 17. And I was in Sequoia. Sequoia was an investor in Freecharge. So I handled the transaction myself, so I know very well. But it is true that Kunal, after his exit from Freecharge, dabbled with a few things, and then said, okay, I'm going to do this. And then his first term sheet, before he even set up something, before he set up his company, he got a term sheet for the 200 million valuation. So his first round was a 45 million raise, as in a time when seed round, pre-revenue rounds were running at between $500K to $1 million. $1 million was the outer limit. Kunal Shah raised a 45 million seed round at 200+ million valuation. So anyway, that is the first story. The second one I know is, this is relatively old, 2009, 2010 types. We met this gentleman called Anantesh. Anantesh, in those days when Google Maps was new, he was the one who had written the tech or the code behind Google Maps. And he had come down from the US office to meet us in Sequoia. And I still remember where we sat in that room. The main person at Sequoia, his name is Shailendra. He said, Anantesh, today I don't care what you want to do, because Anantesh briefly mentioned that he's planning to start something on his own. So the investor was like, we don't even care what you want to do. I don't know what you want to do right now. I am willing to write a 5 million check at 25 million valuation right now. You can decide with this in mind as to what you want to do. Eventually, none of those came to fruition because Anantesh went back to Google, I think, and then possibly is doing very well for himself somewhere right now. But the fact is that someone who's done something meaningful in the past will find it very easy to raise money. There is no two ways about that. And the other thing also, which is a very interesting thing that we've seen, is the founders need not necessarily do stuff that they have done in their past life only. For example, I've seen a lot of people who've done things all their life do that very well when they continue. The guy who runs Paperboat used to sell Coke, was a salesperson at Coke. The guy who started Manappuram Finance was a second generation person because the father started it. And there are lots of instances where the second generation does a better job of taking that first generation business and running it better. But I've also seen success stories where the new company has got nothing to do with their old company. Home Lane is an example. Shrikant Iyer used to be running a education company called EduTech or EduVista or something. It was taken over by Tutor Vista, and then he sold his stake, spent 2 years for his stocks to vest, came out and started this furniture company, Home Lane. And the furniture company Home Lane is now valued at $300-400 million. It's doing very well. So again, there are lots of instances we have seen where people start up something in a completely new space, as long as they have the vision and they feel that they've got onto something very interesting. I think the expertise in that field is possibly not necessary for investors to show love. Yeah, I think we already covered about the unit economics already. So I think this is my side of the startup view. I wanted to take the last 2 minutes to cover the experiences from an investor perspective. This may be slightly away from startups, but investors, good investors, and we work with some of the best brains in the country. Sequoia has got each person is at least a gold medalist in IIM, if not, and is a topper at IIT. Spent some time in McKinsey, Bain Capital, and things like those. But the one thing that does immediately come to me is, see, each of these people who are they don't let an opportunity go. For example, this Stowcraft company I talked about, when we wanted to sign the term sheet, the investment team actually got everyone in office to sit around the founder to show the strength of Sequoia. So there were the finance person was there, the legal person was there, marketing person, the admin people, everyone, and they just promised, telling any one of these people's help you need to scale up Stowcraft into a bigger company, you'll be there. And we didn't. I still remember when we wanted to give him a term sheet, we didn't let him go out of the office by showing various reasons, various things before he signed the term sheet. We let him go only after he signed the term sheet. So first is they grab opportunity like no man's business, and they don't wait. They see an opportunity, they sniff something. It could be a bad decision, but it's okay. But if their mind tells them that it's something they need to do, they will do it instantly, and they will do it with all their might. And the second thing, which is kind of contrary to the first one, but it comes naturally to them, is the good investors are willing to look at their own decision from a year ago or from 6 months ago and laugh at that decision or criticize that decision in public, admit that they made a mistake. And in fact, so much so, they will also call out others and say, see, that mistake I made there, you're making here, so I won't let you do this. Because they're in the business of managing other people's money. They say we have to learn from each other's experience. And it's very difficult. It's very difficult to look at your own decision and say that this is a mistake, something that I did. It's not as if, I can make that mistake once, so you also make it once and learn. They don't do that. They are very, very good at looking at their mistakes and kind of accepting it. So I don't know if I'm kind of putting an abrupt end to this, but this is all that I thought I could cover in the time that we had. I will now briefly open it out, or if there are any questions that people want to answer, or anything even the other people think that I should cover, I'll be more than happy to double click. Over to you, Sabri. Over to you, Mr. Shankar.
Thank you, Nari. I think there are a lot of questions. People have a lot of questions. So I think there are a couple of questions. So here's what I request you. One is that you can just raise your hand on the chat. Another one is that you could type your question on the chat, and I'll look at seeing that we can cover as many. Already there are a few hands going up. So let's go with one which is there on the chat. And Nari, it's your preview whether you would like to take the question if it's relevant. So one of the things is that Shivdeep was wanting to know about Zomato's share price. So do you have any comments on that?
No. I mean, only because this is being recorded, I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't think anyone will reprimand me. I'm just another person, so I can give my honest opinion. I don't think. See, there's a very nice article I read in the Hindu about the Zomato IPO, right? The share price is a number, Shivdeep, so I don't really care what that number is. But 95% of the Zomato IPO was what we call the offer for sale, which means that it is existing investors taking that money out. And these retail investors are putting the money into the hands of the investors who are going out of the company. Very, very, from a governance perspective, a very bad case of having your existing investors bail out while all the retail investors who don't understand much about the company putting money in a loss-making company. I'm actually very surprised. I have a lot of regard for SEBI, but I'm very surprised that SEBI allowed this IPO to happen when close to 90-95% of the IPO was on OFS in a loss-making company that had never made money for its investors from its operational cash flows. So again, I'm not answering that question because for me, the price does not matter. The price is a vanity. It just is. In principle, I had an issue with the Zomato IPO because of that reason.
All right. Thanks, Nari, for that. Thanks also for being subtle about the explanation. I'll request Sundar Prakash to unmute and ask his question. Sundar, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, Nari. Wonderful. I have something on the governance. Since you're doing governance part also, the top class 4 audit firms of the world, PwC, Deloitte, KPMG, EY, they are the bad boys actually of the world. Look at this big scams in India, Satyam, Runbacks, ILFS, now Karvi. So why do I have to follow these 4 big auditing firms and advices? Just throw up some light. I know there are bad boys everywhere, but these guys are the worst performers and the stock market downers of the world. Over to you.
Mr. Sundar, I don't, maybe I may not be answering, as in this is just obviously my perspective, I may not be answering your question in the exact way you want me to, but at some level, why do I go to a big 4? It's only because someone else who I want to please wants me to go to a big 4, right? Whether, for example, the funds, I work with funds, they want big 4 as auditors. That's why I go to big 4. Funds invest in companies. The funds insist that the company's auditors are big 4, because despite the number of scams, if you will, or misses in governance or overlooking of governance, errors of omission, errors of commission from the big 4 as well, it's possibly the TINA factor at play. I think there is no alternative. What is the alternative? You go to a tier 2 firm, like a tier 2 firm that's well known in Bangalore is not as like, I went through this with one of the funds, right? They found the big 4 very expensive. We said, I know a very, very good tier 2 firm in Bangalore, Singvide Unni. I said we can go to them, but problem is, the moment any business wants to take it pan India, the tier 2 firm does not stand up to scrutiny because their name is not well known. So it's possibly the TINA factor at play more than anything else, Mr. Sundar. It's just the TINA factor at play.
Thank you. Thank
you.
Yeah,
but that's an addition question. Why are the big 4 not banned? Because Indian firm gets banned, not the big 4.
SEBI is banned. No, I think there's some
only for 1 year or 2 year or 2 months or 4 months.
Again, what as in these people have the clout. No, it's like telling the big 4. Before you ban the big 4 partner will call someone at Reliance, someone at this one, and they'll say, boss, when SEBI needs to be seen as acting, they will act. But there's only so much it's the world, the real world.
But then you have compromised the quality for quantity.
But again, because of TINA, there's no one else providing that same quality. No, there's no one else providing that same quality. It's actually the TINA factor at play. Who else do you go to? There's really nobody else, right? What are the options? If you have options, yes, we can evaluate. When there are no options, what do you evaluate? You have nothing to evaluate. No. Again, for example, I can take Singvide Unni to SEBI. SEBI will not know Singvide Unni. Singvide Unni will be known to a few people in Bangalore. They're very, very good, but they'll be known to a very few people. And if unfortunately they have to become big, they'll get acquired by one of the big four. Let's take all the big firms in India, Mr. Sundar. Deloitte, Fraser and Ross. Sorry, I mean AFF, Fraser and Ross, SR Batley Boy, Billy Moria. All of those got taken over by one of these big four firms. No, where are all those Lovelock and Lewis? Where is Lovelock and Lewis? It's a part of PwC now. Lovelock and Lewis was a big firm in India. AFF was a big firm in India without any scams. But now it's a part of Deloitte. Deloitte is a part of so many scams. We still go to Deloitte because we know partners at AFF where I did my articles. So it is, unfortunately, it is what it is, right? Then when some of these firms become reasonably big, the big four will come with a paycheck that you can't say no to.
Make an offer you can't refuse.
Exactly. Someone will make an offer you can't refuse. And then what do? You can't blame the founders of those because they don't. उन्होंने पूरे कंट्री का गवर्नेंस का टेना तो लेके नहीं रखा ना यार. They don't need to stand as the beacons of governance in the country. All that they need to do is, boss, my life. I have set up a practice. Big Four want me. They're paying me 2x of what I will make in the rest of my life. I will take that offer and go run with it. I think there's nothing right or wrong about all of this. It's just what happens. It's actually, unfortunately, the TMF factor, and the Big Four have become too big for them to fail. That's what it is. I think there is
some more questions. I think
there's one in the chat. There's one in the chat from Mr. Priyaranjan. I'll take that.
Sure.
How critical for the startup is to be in the right city like Bangalore, Hyderabad, or can someone from a small city with a good idea make it big? Oh, there are enough instances of, for example, Indore. Indore has no investors that are set up their offices there, but I know Indore is the city where Pratap Snacks has its headquarters. Pratap Snacks is the equivalent of Balaji Wafers in the West, and to some extent Haldiram's across the country. But Pratap Snacks is a potato chips, primarily potato chips onion rings company. So they have done very well. Manappuram Finance, you will not believe it. Manappuram Finance started in a village or a tier 4 town in Kerala. I'm forgetting the name is Manappuram, but the Manappuram is the name of a village. Even the town name is something else. That it took the first time Sequoia folks landed there, it took them literally 14 or 15 hours to get to the office from the Bangalore, this one. So it meant 2 flights with the connecting flight from Thiruvananthapuram, and after that another good 3-4 hour cab ride. So they have done very well. So there are enough instances for it, for tier 2 cities to have come through the ranks, companies. But does that help in being in a tier 1 city? It absolutely helps, right? It's like telling, will there not be rank holders in from tier 2, tier 3 cities? There will be rank holders, but would it help getting access to the best facilities, best this one? Yes. So it's like telling someone who's got the vision, someone who's got the hunger to do well will do well from anywhere. But there is no doubt that staying close to where all the resources are absolutely is a huge help. So I don't want to be sounding contradicting. Staying in a tier 2 city doesn't mean you're a failure, but it also doesn't mean that people in the tier 1 cities don't have an advantage. It is true that the companies in tier 1 cities as compared to people in tier 2 cities have a different start point. But if depending on the hunger of the founders, the tier 2 guys can always catch up, even surpass the guys in tier 1 cities. There's no doubt about that. There's a very nice, there's a gentleman who's actually a stand-up comic called Praveen Hellur, I think. Praveen is a Kannada stand-up comic, but he talks very well about how kids from tier 2 cities will actually do a lot better than kids from tier 1 cities because of the amount of, or lesser amount of pampering that they've got, which is the same with companies in tier 1 versus companies in tier 2 cities.
We have Tanya who wants to ask a question. Tanya,
thank you.
I think then after that we have just one more question and then we can close because I think it's also time. So Tanya, over to you.
Thank you, Shankar. Hi, Mr. Nari. First of all, thank you for this session.
It was really, really interesting for me because I'm in the same line. I'm in compliance division of a financial services firm. So I have a lot of questions, but I'll try to keep it to short 2 or 3 questions. So first, you answered Sundar Prakash's thing about the big four. I had similar question about what if these big fours become too big to fail? Like, what happened in the 2007, 2008 financial crisis. What are your views on that?
Ms. Tanya, quite frankly, am I audible?
Yes.
Sorry, yeah. Quite frankly, Ms. Tanya, my opinion will be just another person's opinion. It is, I think we are already seeing there are two things, right? One, I would like to think is there intent on the side of the regulators to act? Yeah, I don't know if you've seen enough of that. And I think possibly that's where the pain for Sundar and your question is coming from, is that there's no intent to act. We are conveniently assuming that even if there is intent, because of TINA factor, there may not be an alternative for us to do. They may not have much options to do. But the question I don't have a clear answer to is there intent for the regulator to act? And that you could see is not there because there is no action that has been taken to avoid this in the future. What has been the action? Action has been zilch. For the longest of time, as long as the client who is paying you is the financials on whom I am commenting, this problem will continue to remain because this is a sure conflict of interest situation. You will, as in unlike most others where this is, you are being paid by your client, but then the general public is relying on those opinions of yours. It is bound to suffer for the longest time. So this is, but unfortunately, this is how everything. This is how it will suffer because it's an inherent problem in the model, is my feel. But obviously, I don't know. I have not thought enough. Sabri is a partner at Deloitte. He will possibly have a better view on what is the best way, because they possibly deal with it on a day-to-day basis. What is the best way to cover? It will be very interesting for me to hear Sabri's thoughts on how something like this can be fixed, or is there something they have given it a thought that has not worked. But as a person who's not privy to all of that, my own feel is we've possibly not seen enough intent from the regulators to fix this, is the way I would say. As in, is it already become too big to fail? They've possibly become too big to fail. Because the last of the big five we saw crumble was Arthur Andersen. Yeah. After that, the big four has possibly become too big to fail. They possibly fixed that by ensuring they got too big to fail.
Right. Thank you so much. My second question was, and I'll keep it to this. SEBI has been extremely conservative in terms of regulations, and that conservatism has actually helped India's economy a lot, I feel. What about the upcoming trends of ESG or crypto, which we see like the likes of FINRA, SEC going ahead with it, but we've not heard much from SEBI about it?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of RBI, SEBI, DIIP, all of those. I think they do. As in, I've myself met a few of these regulators in various situations. I'm a big fan, obviously not of the speed at which they work, but of the approach that they take. So I like their approach because unfortunately they are trying to cover the entire country, which has got multiple things with one piece of regulation. Right. But like with most things, including the direct tax and all of those, in India, the regulation is not the issue, it's the implementation, and which we are finding even with RBI, we are finding even with SEBI. So it is this one. About crypto itself, quite frankly, there's somebody else also in the chat who's asked me what is this one on.
Dilip has asked your two cents on crypto.
Yeah, as in, quite frankly, I don't want to say something that I don't know much about. All that I know is that a crypto is see, there are now doubts coming through. I follow The Economist a lot, and there are now doubts coming through as to the veracity of even the crypto transaction. They have found duplication even in crypto transactions, which means that what we thought was an unbreachable wall also has been breached. crypto came up telling that you will not have anyone, you will not have a regulator. It is completely, what should I say? It can't be spammed, it can't be scammed, scam proof, spam proof. That seems to be not necessarily true. There are people seeing duplication of crypto transactions as well. Again, I don't know enough. All that I know is there have been allegations of that, which have not necessarily been proven. But short answer is, I don't know enough about crypto. Yeah, quite frankly, I don't know enough about crypto. I know it's they use crypto. I know they're also blockchain. It lands on blockchain. I know a bit more about blockchain, but again, not enough to say anything in a learned forum like this. So I won't even try to dabble.
But my question is, do you get a sense that SEBI may be taking some steps towards it, or there's been no conversations about it?
I'm happy if they don't. Yeah, I'm happy if they don't, because people like us don't know enough about it. Let's face it, people who are in SEBI, if anything, are learning from us. Like even to this day, we are trying to educate people in SEBI about VCPE, and I am sitting here cribbing about VCPE guidelines being made on par with mutual fund, hedge fund regulations. If they do something, it will be completely a misfit. It will be a round peg in a square hole. And if they want to do it, I'd rather have them not do it. Despite all the respect I have for them, I would like them to say, we don't know enough. We will get to it when we get to it. Or they put some good money behind learning how it works, and then they do it, which I doubt our regulators will do. So that's my opinion. I don't know. That's not my foresight. I'd be happy if they don't do anything about it, and let it be in a bit more of a gray area for some more time. And then if I were RBI, I would possibly ban cryptocurrency, right? Because we don't know enough. I would ban trading in crypto. I would ban all these betting sites that are accepting crypto and all of that. I personally don't mind making all of it illegal, because I don't think that is what the world needs. At least India needs at this point in time. But it is what it is. It's up to the RBI. I'm sure there are enough forward-looking people who would look at me at a conservative and say, "Boss, you don't know what you're talking." But it's fine.
No, I think I agree with your point, because yes, there was definitely one news about the breach in the blockchain, and all of this started with the NFTs. And but at the same time, what I'm noticing in India, there's been a high demand, as in people are still betting with cryptos. And if something were to go down and we don't have a regulation around it, and that's where my question was coming from. But I appreciate your response. Thank you.
No, in India, you promise anything that you'll make quick money, people will come and put money. Yeah. And it's all marketing, right? It's all marketing. You promise quick money, people will come and put money. That's all. Simple.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Nari. So I just make one more, call for our contributions. We have, apart from Nari's contribution, we have around 16,500. We have collected over the evening, and our sponsor has just informed us that, hey, if you can collect another 40 more, I'm in for the scooter from my side. So I'm looking for everybody to pitch in from our club. Even after the meeting is over, you can message Sabri about your contribution, and we'll close this by Sunday and take a call, because we need to present the sponsor that we have money for one scooter, so that you can give us one scooter. So thank you for all the thank you, Usha, thank you, Tanya, thank you, Chaya, Sabri, Sarangan, for your contribution. I'm requesting the other members also to pitch in, so that I got Dilip, our guest, who's also contributed 1,000. Thank you so much, Dilip. So here's first time that one of our times where all our guests have also been contributing. So thank you very much, Dilip, for that. I request Rotarian Sundar Prakash to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Sundar.
Thank you, President. Nari, thank you so much. It was a wonderful presentation. You have opened our eyes towards investment, Indian stock markets, and also startup funding. Also, you informed us about the government governance and regulations and how SEBI is acting upon. Also, I like the thing you touched upon how China is ahead of India by over a decade. And, you gave examples of Tencent with one full app. I know India also is doing similar. Tata app, super app is coming, Jio super app is, all these guys are also following the same path to provide one-stop service. Also, listening to you, I came to know that you're a fitness freak and Ironman participant. My goal for last couple of years to be to participate in Ironman too. I run a minimum 15 kilometers per day, 365 days. The last 8 years.
Oh, wow.
But I'm not in the league of Ironman. But I know you will know my good friend Vinay Basavaraj. He's an Ironman of India. You maybe know him.
Vinay is my swimming coach.
Yeah, he is my kid.
Oh, okay.
I know him from the age of 3.
Wow, I'll tell him. Vinay is my swimming coach actually.
Yeah, because her mom and me are the business partners. Anyway, so we also linked up.
Small world.
Small world. Yeah.
No, but 15 kilometers a day is 5,000 plus kilometers in a year. Wow.
Yeah, I already covered the globe, actually.
Wow.
Okay, it is there. Okay, anyway, wonderful having you. It was great. Besides you, we like to thank our Rotary Green Park. A lot of tractors also joined besides the guests. Thank you so much for coming for this evening. Over to our president.
Thank you, Nari, once again. So we'll officially close the meeting. Meeting adjourned. We can all stay back for some casual conversation, and officially we are open to any